What is happening? Something is going on. Can you feel the way?
First of all, why don't we just frame for our audience your book and how it came about, and maybe just a little background of you yourself.
Well, I've been an investigative reporter for the last 15 years. I've written 7 books, and I've written a couple hundred articles for newspapers and magazines in the United States and Europe. Subjects have been mainly what people like to call deep politics, what's going on behind the scenes, and that also includes medicine and health as well as just straight politics. I got interested in the Oklahoma City bombing a few days after the bombing when the facts began circulating around the country that seismographical evidence showed that there was more than one explosion at the building, and that this didn't fit with the government's scenario that it was a single truck bomb from a Ryder truck parked at the curb. So that was my beginning point, and through interviewing a number of bomb experts and other people who were eyewitnesses or ear witnesses on the scene, it became clear to me that, in fact, there were at least 2 explosions, and that from the damage, the profile of the damage done in the building, there had to have been charges placed inside the building that went off more or less simultaneously with the truck bomb. And that led me to the obvious conclusion that, we had to be talking here about a fairly sophisticated operation, in fact, a very sophisticated operation. It wasn't just a couple of people who hated the U.S. government who wanted to destroy a building. They were the visible people. But behind the scenes, there had to be some real professionals involved, and so that raised all kinds of questions about why and who and all of that. So that's where I really began.
Mm-hmm. Some of the interesting observations or the interesting facts that you uncover have to do with the fact that there's a disparity between the United States Geological Survey seismograph and the University of Oklahoma seismograph.
Yes, well, the U.S. Geological Survey eventually wanted to conclude that one explosion was very plausible, and I believe that they had to really stretch it to come to that conclusion, that in fact the clear evidence is that there were several explosions. And I talked extensively with Ray Brown, who is a geologist at the University of Oklahoma. And finally he said to me, look, he said, I saw the damage, I walked through some of it, and to me it looked like people simply came in there and did a demolition job on the building, just like the kind of demolition that you see on television. And that evidence, and plus his seismographical evidence, made it clear to me that we were talking about something quite strange indeed. And for a while, the U.S. Geological Survey seemed to consider the possibility that there was more than one explosion, but eventually they decided that that wasn't a good idea. And my opinion, frankly, is that they decided to abandon the investigation because it would be politically incorrect and dangerous for them.
Mm-hmm. You also pointed out a few inconsistencies or misconceptions about the fertilizer bomb that McVeigh is allegedly have said to constructed. You want to talk about that a little bit and what an ANFO bomb is?
Yes, an ANFO bomb means ammonium nitrate plus fuel oil, and information has actually come out since I wrote the book, which I have detailed many times, and that information indicates basically that the FBI lab never really did know that it was an ANFO bomb to begin with. But they simply inferred that from the fact that McVeigh had purchased a large amount of ammonium nitrate, and that Terry Nichols had in his possession what's called a prime-adet relay system, excuse me, which is a way of detonating that kind of bomb. And the only reason that they decided that the bomb was contained in 50 white plastic barrels was because, again, McVeigh had some of that material in his possession. So we had the extraordinary case of the FBI lab doing no forensic examination at all, but simply making some pretty bald and ridiculous assumptions based on the scenario that the head office at the FBI was floating about how all this occurred. In addition to that, if it had been an ANFO bomb in the truck, and we really don't know, but it looks like it wasn't, it would have been a very difficult piece of work to set off 50 barrels of ANFO so that they would provoke any kind of force whatsoever, because the one thing with an ANFO bomb that you try to avoid if you're going to set it off is airspace. And with 50 separate barrels, you've got nothing but airspace between the barrels. So the whole thing just doesn't ring right. It makes no sense. It was a lie to begin with. It was a cover story. It was a hypothesis that the FBI likes to plug in early in many investigations to assure the public that it's, quote, on top of things.
Yeah. So you think that, well, what is your conclusion, or what are your thoughts? I don't want to lock you into anything, but what do you think the cover story is here?
Well, the cover story is the cover-up. I mean, the cover story is simply that McVeigh and Nichols probably acted alone, that John Doe 2, whose picture was heavily circulated around the country, really didn't exist at all, that was a mistake made by a witness, and that, they caught the right people who hated the U.S. government, who were probably plotting in some way to start a mini war against the U.S. government, that these were, quote, patriots or militia types, and that was the whole story. And I think that that's a ridiculous assumption, and it does a great disservice to the people of Oklahoma City and the rest of the country, because there are obviously murderers loose who killed 168 people that have never been not only brought to trial, but never even been searched for or investigated. What's really going on here is like a triple-decker or maybe more levels of story. It's very complex. It involves a number of different people, probably Middle Eastern operatives, probably people at a, quote, religious community outside of Oklahoma City called Elohim City, where there was paramilitary training going on for people in the white Aryan movement who would come from around the country to learn about arms and explosions and all that sort of thing. That those groups were in some way connected with McVeigh and Nichols, and that this was a very carefully planned operation, and meant to be deceptive and deceiving to any investigators who might really want to get to the bottom of it. So this puts a completely different slant on the whole thing, and as to motive, why would this have been done? Again, we have several layers of motives depending on which people we're talking about. For the people who were perhaps involved out of that community called Elohim City, there was a hatred of the United States government, of feeling that the government had to be destroyed. These were people, some of whom were apparently looking to start a race war in the United States, white supremacists. They felt this might be a trigger. For Middle Eastern operatives who might well have been involved, this could have been revenge for the Gulf War. It could have been revenge just simply against the United States, whom Middle Eastern terrorists tend to view as, the great Satan. Now, beyond that, it's hard to say and only speculation, but my feeling is that we could be looking at yet a much more shadowy level of operation here, which used the people that I've just discussed.